This is the Anything Show with John Francois.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey John, thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, of course, anytime. So I gotta say, and for those listening, I'm a black guy, so I just want to kind of preface this question with that. Funny because as a black guy, especially in this business, I've gotten a lot of people saying that they thought I was white or Jewish by the sound of my voice. And what's strange,
yo, man, like I gotta unpack that. Like, what's the Jewish part? Like, how do you get to the Jewish part of your voice? Like you like, oi.
I don't know. I did spend a lot of my childhood growing up in a predominantly Jewish town, so maybe I've just kind of picked up some neuroses that may be common in the Jewish. I have no idea, but my point being that it's funny because I've sometimes taken offense to those racially based assumptions, and yet when I start listening to your guys' podcast, I'm like, okay, this person is Khalil and this person is Ben, and then of course you guys totally invalidate.
Yes,
and it's just totally flipped. So I wanted to wonder. I mean, have you guys ever gotten that? Like, oh, wait a minute, you're Khalil, you're Ben. I thought you guys were the other way around.
Yeah, one of the first people on Twitter to comment on our show basically was like, Ben sounds like the black guy and Khalil sounds like the white guy. Yeah. And then another person was like, white guys just get to do anything. This guy, Khalil, has a Harvard, he teaches at Harvard, he's done all these things. This other guy, he doesn't have any credentials. And why does he get to have a podcast?
Oh my God.
So yes, lots of assumptions to navigate out there in the listening world. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you're already into the minefield of all of our racial assumptions and all of our ideas about difference. I mean, so it's like what fascinating and rich territory to sort of like explore.
Yeah, and I really loved diving into your podcast, starting with the first episode about the history of interracial buddy films. And I knew that there were some, but it wasn't until listening to your podcast that I realized, oh my God, there's a lot of them. There was a lot of them. I mean,
that's
you're talking
right.
about
That's right.
Yeah, Crazy, Training Day, etc. And I wonder, because of the point that you guys made about like the sort of Reagan era colored blindness that a lot of these films try to take on, I wonder if it's because of that, say, unintended ignorance that we don't seem to have that much interracial buddy films nowadays. I don't know if there's any. I mean, besides the Lethal Weapon reboot, I don't even know if there's any nowadays that I could think of that were as much as back in the day where we had the 48 hours and all that stuff.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, John, when you talked about a moment in time. And that moment in time in the 1980s, this was a real moment for a kind of cultural project that leaned into this idea that if we could just get to know each other, then America's problems would go away, and that the real enemy in America wasn't Black people and white people. It was the Russians. It was the Soviets. This was the Cold War era. I mean, so in the 1980s, a lot of these movies are trying to get Black and white men in particular to consolidate together around all sorts of, like American values, family values. So the Lethal Weapon scene that essentially is about Danny Glover as the hardworking patriarchal father figure. So a total inversion of the stereotypes of the broken Black family. He's got the two beautiful kids. He's got the wife who can't cook, but she's earnest in it. He's got the fishing boat in the driveway. Then you've got this lunatic who is his new partner. And how do they come together? The white guy who is the lunatic comes into the Black family so that they can defeat some crazy Soviet-inspired operative from the Vietnam era. And that was the 1980s. That's what the project in America was about. But of course, we had the war on drugs. We had the gutting of the social safety net. And so it was like bait and switch. It was like, if you guys get to be buddies, then we get to destroy the social fabric of America. How about that?
And it's sort of the amnesia that we wanted from civil rights. Like all the bad stuff in America happened back then before we knew better. And now we're all good. And sort of those films sort of, tried to inculcate us with those ideas. Like, no, that was from back then. We're all good now. Like, we're just friends. We're buddies. I mean, it was also why 48 Hours was so fascinating. I know Eddie Murphy's comedy, had this stand-up called Raw, but there were these raw moments in it when they're just talking real. I mean, there's a moment in a bar where Eddie Murphy is like, like the deep racism and, of the past. And you're like, oh, this is about structural stuff. Like it was so different. And then we appreciated that movie in such different ways.
Yeah. Now, of course, Khalil, you being a Black guy, and Ben, you being a white guy. I mean, we talk about, your friendship and how you guys grew up together, being friends in the South Side of Chicago. And as you're discussing about, the intricacies, the absurdities of race in America, I kept wondering, I wonder if they, in their own friendship, had a time where, a racist situation happened, like what was either a racist statement that was said or a racist thing that was done. Have you guys ever had that tension in your friendship, being interracial friendship?
Khalil was wearing the Kyrie Irving jersey the other day. He bought Kyrie Irving jersey online. And I was like, that doesn't make me feel very good.
No, the truth is, John, we get asked this question a lot, and the truth is that there's no moment that I can think of. I mean, most of what we fought over were the things that friends fight over. For example, Ben stole a $2 bill from me when we were like 15 from my bedroom, and I still really haven't forgiven him for it, because I'm like, it was my $2 bill collection.
This is where you can get sued for slander or something.
Defamation.
That wasn't me. That wasn't. You're gonna just blame you're gonna blame the Jewish guy. You're gonna blame the Jewish guy.
Oh, you see, he had to take it there. See, there you go. Our first racist comment in our friendship. So the truth is that, this is the great point. Race was a manipulation. The problem in America was oppression. And they created this system of race for us to say these people are inferior, therefore they should be oppressed. And so what Ben and I, this is a long story and we tell it in the podcast in many different ways, but what Ben and I are showing is the friendship is the basis of us rethinking all the bull stuff that has been heaped upon us and all the systems that were being hidden from view that we need to actually deal with, that we need to change. So we want people to see us as kind of guides to a different way of being together so we can do the hard work we need to do in this country.
Now,
go ahead, please, John, go ahead.
Oh, no, Ben, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say that, I think neither of us can think of a specific moment, and that doesn't mean we haven't said ridiculous and stupid things, but that we're able to just talk about it. It's not the defining moment in our friendships and being like, I'm going to write that guy off at this point, or like, oh, that's actually someone who can't be my friend, which often happens in cross-racial relationships that aren't that deep. You're like, oh, yeah, ooh, that person said this. I can't fight with them. And, for us, we would just talk it out and be like, and you're like, oh, and so it's a piece of this vast friendship. And so we're able to sort of talk through that. We're not perfect in any way, and we have all sorts of flaws, and so it's just not defining in that sense.
Lastly, really quickly before you guys go, obviously we're talking on Election Day right now, and I feel like the conversation around race was a lot more heightened the last election that we had, Election Day 2020, I believe it was, than right now, where, the focus seems to be on other issues like inflation, abortion. I mean, rightfully so. So I guess I wanted to just kind of get a temperature, from you guys, of course, having a race-based podcast. What do you do you think we still have a similar attention to race? Do you think there's as important of a microscope on it coming into this election day, or do you think it's just kind of been swept under the rug?
So the short answer to your question is it's always there. And so the question of inflation is really the question of Biden's promises to do student loan forgiveness, to invest in communities that had been neglected historically. Those are for the opponents of the Biden administration inflationary spending packages that help the undeserving people of color in this country. So that's the point. Like, when you enter into our conversation, you get to learn ways that things don't appear as they seem, when in fact, it's our job to help people see kind of how this all works. And we do it in a playful, fun way.
Yeah, I mean, all the talk about crime, which is, talking about the 1980s, like there's all this fear of crime that the Republicans are trucking out, which is just like a bald tire, like it's been worn out. But it is so coded with race. I mean, sometimes not even coded, sometimes it's explicit. I'm in Illinois, I'm in Chicago. In Illinois, there's a Republican running for governor, and all of the ads are like, that crime that's happening over there in the cities, it's going to come for you unless we do something about it. And, that is that idea of race, like the inner city crime, Black criminality is going to get you, and we have to be tough on crime, and we have to keep people locked up forever.
Awesome.
And folks, that's the white guy talking, just in case you lost track.
Yeah. Well, Ben Austen, Khalil, Gibson, Muhammed, hosts of Some of My Best Friends Are Our podcast. Really, really fantastic. Highly recommend.
John,
thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, John.
The Anything Show with John Francois is on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. Join us on YouTube, Facebook.com/The Anything Show, and Instagram and TikTok @Anything Show Francois.